Hello, and welcome to another episode of Brothers, Battles, and Bounty, where business, family, and future success converge. We're your hosts. I'm Anton.
I'm Martin.
I'm Stefan. You're Anton.
I'm Andy. No, I wish I
I'm
was
Stefan.
Anton. I want to live to 125, so I'm living vicariously. Okay, where do we start over? We are your hosts. I am Andreas.
I'm Martin.
I'm Stefan. I'm Anton.
And we're here to present our next episode, which we have entitled Your Future Self. And I'd like to start out, if I may, with a statistic that I recently heard. And the statistic, I'm quoting Elon Musk, is the one that brought this up. And I think he's a pretty cool dude. He's done some pretty amazing things. But he said that the current knowledge that people have access to, facts, data, and information today, here and now, with all the technology, is far exceeds the smartest people from the 1980s. The amount of information that we have access to is more than, and I'm butchering the statistic, but the premise is sound. Mm-hmm. Like we have access to more information than people smartest and had access than the 1980s.
That's 40 years ago.
40 years ago.
It's not that long ago.
So, I mean, when I heard that, it was kind of.
It's accelerating too.
And it's accelerating. Good point. So I thought it was a good idea to bring that up in the context of future self, because you look at what future is there for me given access now to all this information and wisdom and knowledge. I'm thinking I've always been very, very optimistic and very proactive in determining that I can create my future. And right now, more than any other time in history, it seems it's more possible than ever to achieve whatever you want to achieve. I mean, what's your guys' thought on that?
The past, I'm a historian, and when I was like looking at the past to try to learn, where I am and where I'm going, but the past is kind of like the R&D of my life, my research, and it's happened.
What's R&D?
Research and development.
Okay.
My ability to learn, to kind of build my skill set for here and now.
So just to elaborate, I'm hear what you're saying, but so your past is R&D, meaning your life experiences and everything you've gone through is kind of like the research development for the future?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Got it.
And so a lot of folks will look at their past and say, well, they'll blame somebody, their mom, their dad, their brother, their sister. I can't do this because this happened in my past and it's had such a huge impact on me. I can't change. Okay. Well, to me, I see that as being flawed thinking. Okay. Although it's real, I'm not trying to be judgmental or critical here. But if I look at the past as R&D instead of holding me back, or something that happened is holding me back, and using that crutch and that excuse, can be very damaging. So when I look at the future, I look at it of living with intent. The future's clear. It's a clear slate. There's nothing, I can make it what I want because it hasn't happened yet, right? So that concept in and of itself excites me, because the past I can't change. It's happened, but it's made me who I am. The future, if I can live with intent and create a vision for the future, I just have to do what I've done in the past that gets me closer to what that is. Surround myself with future-based people who are looking at the future rather than saying, oh, mommy liked you more, daddy liked you more, or using excuses for not going forward. They're living in the past. And it's the present is the only time that we have. So it's really fascinating subject. Okay?
That's interesting to look at your past as kind of like life lessons. What I hear you saying is like life lessons, what you learned, so that you can approach today and the future more resourcefully.
Taking full responsibility for my past. It's me. It's not anybody else.
It's the foundation of each one of us. Our past is the foundation of who we are today. And, we talked about, what's, the future. It's like, shit, what's what is the future? Where do I see myself, or where does anybody see themselves in the future? It's almost like it's a topic that is very intriguing because it's, everybody wants the rosy, this is what it's going to, and, hopefully that pans out. But as we all know, life changes. Life throws things at us constantly. And you constantly have to shift the direction you're going in based on what happens in your life. So, one of the things that I heard was the first thing that somebody should do is write down their goals. Write it down is the most powerful thing that anybody can do for goals, future, whether it's you can make it happen or not, just write it down. And what they said was, and I can't remember who the gentleman was, write down 10 things. Okay. And then out of those 10 things, pick the one thing that would be the most important thing in your life that would change. I mean, it would be like, oh my God, if I could get rid of the rest and put that thing on the top and start writing down what you need to do to accomplish that. What are the things, what are the milestones that you have to hit to get to that? And I was like, okay, well, that's it. Because a lot of times you write down 10 things.
Have you been doing that?
No. I just read it. So,
okay.
But it made a lot of sense. Now, I do write goals down, and it does make a big difference when you write it down and you're looking at it. Okay. But that's, future. I'm that's like, hey, the next year, next 2 years. Okay. I write down the goals. Future is more like, okay, what's it going to look like 10 years, 15 years from now? That's a little more, I have not done that.
Yeah. Wow.
And I think it's intriguing because I'd love to do that because, but writing it down.
Critical.
Is critical.
One of the things that I learned the hard way was from Andy about writing down my goals. I used to always write them down. What is that going to do? But when I wrote them down, and he told me, he goes, just write them down. Just write your goals down and then take a look back at it in 6 months or a year. Like, all right, okay. So I did it. I was like, oh my God, because I forgot what I wrote down. I forgot all about it. However, the thing that happened was most of those items that I was looking that I wanted to accomplish, it happened. It happened. So I think it went into my subconscious that I had these goals and all that. And by writing them down, it ingrained it. One of the things looking into the future for me, I'm looking at this, there's going to be so many different changes and different things. I have to go back and use my experiences that I had before. And I think one of the biggest things that in thinking about that and looking at it was that my perspectives. Now, there's going to be things that are going to repeat, or there's going to be similar events or challenges that are going to come up. And one of the things I looked at is when I look at some of the key elements of my life that were very significant or impactful, I'm thinking now it's like, okay, how can I interact or react with a similar situation in a much better way? How do I saw how I reacted. I saw how I handled that situation. And in the future, similar things will happen. How can I be more impactful with that? How can I take these events that are going to happen and be more impactful and more meaningful and more constructive? And it was like, oh, wow, I am really challenged. This is going to be a tough deal because I have no idea what all is going to happen. With things changing so quickly and dynamically, it's going to be different than what it was. But yet there's some things that do sort of similarly come together in that way. How am I going to handle that? That's
that's interesting because, one of the things that, we talked about writing things down is my, I guess it'd be my brother-in-law, Mike, who passed away. He was, younger guy. Okay. But nobody knew anything about, his bank accounts, what he had, what he owned, and I saw my family my in-laws going through this process. And after everything was said and done, my wife comes to me and is like, what do we do if something happens to us? And I'm like, I don't know. She's like, how's Greta going to know what to do? Where is everything? What? And I'm like, well, she's like, we really need to write this down. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, that's it. Then I start writing it down. I'm like, oh my God. I start writing down, here's where the bank accounts are. Here's this, and here's where the mortgage is, and here's where the deed is, and here's what you need to do. It's morbid as it sounds. It's just like, call this. These are the steps because we just went through it. And it was 2.5 pages long.
Yeah.
Of things to do.
You probably missed a bunch of stuff.
Well, you missed some stuff, but now to manage it, to keep it updated too.
Where things are at.
Yeah.
Where is the,
well, that's a rather bleak view.
No, but that's just
right.
one thing.
But it's realistic.
It's
and
realistic because if
you
have a concern for your family and different stuff, some shit happens, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if something happens, it's unplanned,
My
unforeseen.
point is we wrote it down
prepared.
and gave us a peace of mind.
Yep.
We're
That's
good.
awesome.
Now take some of your goals and do the same thing. And it's the same.
Yeah.
It's that, wow, okay. I know what to do. This is the checklist of things to do.
So that triggers in me, being in the sales and marketing. I love delving in the past. It's easy. This is what the sales were for this month, this quarter. But every year we have to go through our budgeting process. And where are we going to go? What's the revenue we're going to generate? How are we going to do, what we do so that we can apply the resources to accomplish what we're trying to do in a period of time? Very fascinating process. And what I've found when going into the future, you need to have intention of where you'd like to see it go. But the very next step is the collaborative effort of others around you who are going to be a part of this future. And for me, and I'm using the example of budgeting and forecasting. So I would
strategic planning.
I would come up with a number, looking at data and history, and then I would present it to the team to say, where do you, finance, where do you see us being? Operations, where do you see us being? Martin, where do you see us? Anton, Andreas, and then everybody starts to share, and then together we kind of address collaboratively what is that future going to be, because we're all going to have a part of that future.
So I believe collaborative effort can clearly accelerate achieving the visions of the future for sure versus going solo.
Yes.
And for me, I've been focused on goals and future self and that for a long time, studying neurology, human behavior, and all of this stuff. And what I've realized, there's commonality in everything that we're talking about. And for me, I understood that life experiences we experienced them not intentionally. We were exposed to stimulus and we interpreted it one way. And that was the lesson that we cataloged in our mind, when in reality, it's just how we interpret it. So what I've realizing that I took all the highs of my life, great achievements, all the way down to the lows of my life, rated them, ranked them, defined them, and then extrapolated what was the lesson I learned from this. Okay. So now, and the reason I did that is I know that, to your point, Anton, when you come up with new experiences, our mind is a huge comparator. It takes the stimulus in. Oh, I'm kind of familiar with that. It accesses our database of history of what we went through, and then it extrapolates it out. So by me defining what I learned, I'm hopefully coming, instead of triggering a catastrophic event. Oh my gosh, this is like this. And I remember last time I was ready to jump off a building because this happened. Now I'm like, oh, this is what I learned. And ultimately, to try to be able to take experiences that are happening now as if I've never had the experience before. So the experience I'm having is totally new, so that I'm able to now, develop a new catalog.
Many ways it is new.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then ultimately, the goals I set for the future, I set them so magnanimous, so out there. But I've heard this quote, I don't know from who, but it says, if you could dream it, you can achieve it. Okay. So that's like from one of the motivational. Ooh, Disney?
Walt Disney?
Possibly.
Yeah.
So the point is, so I'm like, okay, so I'm going to go for broke, because I've realized, being goal-oriented all the years and time that I have, I've achieved so much stuff that I never imagined. But the achievement was like, it wasn't this big cross the finish line, fireworks go, oh my God. It was anticlimactic. And what I deduced was the journey of getting there. It's in the journey, not the destination. Another cliche quote, but it's what I've experienced. So by setting these huge goals, my journey is now more rich,
exciting.
And I'm like, I tell, I'm in, leadership groups and different people that I make privy to this. I have the same response, like, all the time. They're like, you're nuts. That's stupid. Nobody could ever achieve that. Like, what's the point? And I'm like, hey, look at what I have done. And I remember being in a forum before with some of the gentlemen you're currently in forum with. We had this goal setting seminar at the beginning. Everyone had like 3 goals, 2 goals. Well, I'm going to do this. I had maybe 80, right? And the one guy says, Andreas, that's the stupidest thing ever. Nobody could do that. That's ridiculous. At the end of the year, I had like 60 of them done. 29. He had barely his one. No, I don't. He achieved this stuff. He's a great dude. Accomplished a lot. But that's been my lesson. And so my future self, I try to want to be a better version of myself every day. And when I look back at a year ago, I don't want to be able to recognize who I was a year ago, because I've gone through so much, and that's just a paradigm. And it's been a heck of a ride. It's been cool.
You can take that same concept and put it towards a business.
Well, that's,
you take a look at our business. Where do we want to see our business in 10 years, 15 years? What is it that, we write things down, but, having that direction or having that end game,
and collaborating, like
collaborating
and
making
looking at
it happen.
fresh. Yeah.
Otherwise, you got so many businesses out there that they don't do that. And all of a sudden they get to the end game and it's like, okay, what do we do now? Well, I don't know. What do we do with the business? I don't know.
And you look at how fast everything's changed.
Yeah.
You can't. There's no way you can survive by doing it the way you always did.
You look at certain goals that you have, and you write them down, and you do all these things, and then you accomplish it. And all of a sudden, you don't have more goals. Okay, so now all of a sudden you've accomplished
now
it.
What do I do?
And now what do you do?
Talk to Andy.
And
He
then,
puts 80 together.
no,
Right.
I understand. The key is, but I want to just dwell on that concept for a little bit. You're looking in the future, you're aspiring to pay your mortgage or expand double your business, triple your business. And all of a sudden you get there and you don't have anything beyond that. You're kind of, if you don't continually create in the future,
you just got to make the vision far enough out to where, like I have 25-year goals.
Yep.
And so that's so far out. I'm like, I got 25 years, but they're monstrous.
Fast.
But now, you're right. Time goes so fast. But like, if by the time I get 25 years from now, it's kind of like, good. In the meantime, you're going along. It's the short-term goals that you check the box. Now what? Now what? Yeah. And as a business, a for-profit business, developing a magnanimous vision, like, oh, we're going to double a business. Collaboratively, oh, we're going to double it. I look at that as, that's ridiculous. We should multiply 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times. You think, whoa, that's crazy. No. Now you think about, in a previous episode, we talked about networking and getting the right individuals. You look to people now who have increased their business 100-fold, and they're out there. How'd you do it? Oh, yeah. As opposed to, oh, how did you lose your business? Let's talk to them. No. And there are people that have increased it 100-fold, more and more and more. And by setting the goal, now the individuals that we network with and our own choices of what we do day to day, almost growing that big is easier than doubling, because now there's way less things there's only a few things you got to do to grow to that extent. You got to focus on the biggest potential customers. You got to focus on, so I'm
markets,
getting markets and customers and all that stuff. And it's really just a perspective. And given the technological transformation that the world has gone through, given the fact we're in America, given the fact we're entrepreneurs, we're brothers, we get along, we collaborate, we focus, we got these systems of strategic planning, network, the melt, we got the material, capital. We got the energy, we got the labor, we got the transport, all these things. What's the limitation? Our mind, where we're thinking,
right?
I mean, so future self, it's, what do they say? The future's so bright we have to wear shades. That's an
It's
old.
not a saying. That's a song.
A song. Oh, yeah. I thought it was. But anyway, I get excited about this topic because I think it is. There is no right answer, wrong answer. Where do you want to be in the future?
Where do you want to be?
And taking responsibility and living with intention.
Because knowing where you want to take your business will set up your plan and your strategy and how to get there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You want to build it to sell it? Do you want to build it to pass it on to the next generation? Do you want to, what is it that what's the end game when you're looking at your business?
We brought up a key point I wanted to get out, and that is the future potential is based a lot of times on what your past has been. So what is the future potential? You're like, well, I remember we did increase sales 30%, 20%, we lost 50, and that's the criteria that we're bouncing off of to determine what's possible in the future. When in reality, it was just a limited thinking at that particular time, because we've grown so much, we've learned so much. Technology is now giving us so much. It's almost like, where do we want our future to be? I mean, it's really a matter of choice at this point. I mean, what's your guys' thought on that?
And writing
it down. The future is a matter of
documenting
choice.
it.
Yeah.
Writing it down, documenting it. Being in America, the possibilities are endless. I mean, we've got the infrastructure here in this country. We got the resources. I mean, businesses can strive easily.
Yeah.
So I
prepare for the roadblocks and challenges that are coming out there, and just make sure you're ready for it.
One of the things I wanted to share with the group is that with all of the leads that are coming in and people looking at our website daily, I'm looking at all this daily. What % would you think we get? About 75, 80 visits a day? Okay.
On our website?
On our website. what percent would you think is coming from outside of the USA?
Outside of USA,
exclusive.
5%.
I'd say 20%.
5 to 10.
It's between 45 and 50%.
Wow.
Wow.
Coming from outside the United States.
Outside New Zealand, Asia, Middle East. It's like 48%.
Holy crap! Man.
Okay, so what is that?
Is there any one or two countries that stand out?
Yeah, there's a number of ones. Australia pops up a lot. Asia, Russia. I mean, all of them really. But it's amazing. I was amazed.
Yeah.
So, what amazes you about the thought that you saw 5%, 10%,
Well,
20%?
if it's Russian, they're probably trying to hack us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good point. I mean, when you hear that, what goes through your mind?
What goes through my mind is opportunity.
Yeah.
I mean, just opportunity
Or
to develop networks.
Or they're trying to
Opportunity,
copy
but
us.
also like, man, what are these guys doing?
Yeah.
They're everywhere.
Yeah.
What are they
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah.
How do we emulate that? That's what I mean,
It's a good point.
what is it? 20% of our revenue is from outside the United States,
That's pretty close. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So,
We also think it's a testament to technology.
That's
Everyone has
the future.
universal
Like
access.
20 years ago, you would
Yeah.
have 48%. Back then it was 5%.
Now they're
It was.
sitting at their
Yeah.
desk, they're doing a search.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yep. We're selling swivels to, people, hey, can I get this? Can I get that? Can I get Cherokee? It's
Yeah.
turkey wanted to buy, anyway, it's
right.
It's awesome.
anyway.
So great. So future, we need to keep this concept alive in our minds and next strategic planning as we're moving forward and see what we can potentially do to kind of enhance the perspective of what the future is and maybe stretch a little bit. You've heard of big, hairy, audacious goals, that's been a lot. And then work on this collaborative effort, to now set the sights and really see what we can do, because it is about the journey. How can we do it, have fun, and make new records. And
For me, it's identifying the obstacles, because there's always obstacles to get to where you want to go, but be aware that those obstacles and our ability to overcome those obstacles are really raw material for breakthroughs. And as opposed to, it's an obstacle. Oh, how are we going to, well, it's like, oh man, if we can figure that out,
We're there.
we're there. Yeah.
Love it,
And
love it.
it's just a mindset that I find to be very helpful in dealing with the future, because there's a lot of obstacles.
I look at how do we develop more impactful questions for ourselves when we go through the strategic planning.
like, what do you mean?
Because when we ask various questions of, what are the challenges? What do we see for materials? Or what do we see, as far as our economy, as far as, our business, our customers, our vendors? The challenge is to try and come up with challenging questions, asking the right questions for us now to go down the path
Why is
address that. Well, that opens up the door for opportunity, and it opens up doors for us to how do we now cover things that could go wrong, things that, that we're not thinking. How do we prepare ourselves for the massive changes that are coming down
That's
the
a
line?
great question. How do we prepare it? So to your point, questions. How do we prepare ourselves for the massive changes? Well, I think that's a great way to kind of emphasize and punctuate the content we're talking about the future self and all of that stuff. I look forward to seeing us implementing some of the content here. This is really good stuff.
Very cool.
Awesome.
Great input. I learned some really great stuff from you guys, and I just want to share my appreciation for this process, because it's just so enlightening. That being said, any last minute nuggets of wisdom we want to dispense to each other?
Write
and
your
our
goals
audience?
down. Write it down.
Write it down, right? And I would just say, write it down and just go for broke. Just go out, and because it's all about the journey anyway.
Right.
Anything else? Yeah.
Great job hosting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Subscribe YouTube.
Yes, and thank you. Another episode. Have a
Yep.
wonderful,
Thank you.
wonderful
Thank you.
time. Until next time.
Yep.